Okay, so we're going to look at some basic system design considerations for water pipe systems. One of the first requirements that we need to be aware of is the minimum pressure required at a fixture. Minimum pressure required at most fixtures for design purposes is 15 psig or 105 kPa, 105 kilopascals. So those are approximately equal pressures. That would mean that your most distant or governing fixture may require 15 psi minimum of flow pressure just to operate. It wouldn't be enough if we designed a system to simply overcome elevation and friction but not have any residual pressure left over to operate the fixture. Otherwise there would be merely a trickle out of the end of the system. So we have to have a minimum pressure left over right off the bat. Minimum pressure we should be able to supply would be at least what the fixture requires. Then we have to look at conditions in some cases where we have to overcome elevation, which creates a head pressure that we have to overcome. Now, head pressure that's created by the density of water is 1 psi for every 2.31 feet. In this case, we're showing an example where at the building supply we have a pressure of 60 psi and we're trying to overcome 30 feet of elevation. So if you take 30 feet and divide it by 2.31, which is the feet of head per psi, that comes to approximately 13 psi loss. So just due to elevation, if we were to have a gauge at the base of this riser and a gauge at the top of that riser, you'd see 13 psi difference with no water moving. When water starts moving, we start to incur additional losses due to friction in the piping. So the higher the velocity, the smaller the piping, the higher the friction, and that becomes a pressure loss as well. So these are three things that we will think about over the next few presentations as we're sizing water piping systems. Minimum pressure required at the fixture used to be published in the code. We usually just take 105 kPa as the design minimum. Of course, some fixtures may specify higher minimum pressure requirements. Elevation is also something we need to overcome because we're going to lose about 1 psi for every 2.31 feet we elevate water. Metric equivalent would be 10 kPa per meter for design purposes. And then friction can be calculated from friction loss tables produced by pipe manufacturers at their recommended velocities. Now, some of the code tables have some of these conditions, these criteria built into them for us for expedience in installation and design. So we'll look at some of that later as well.